Well, hello and welcome to PM Express. Ghana's development today, the president unveiled a 7-year ambitious plan that's going to definitely move us from where we are to a much better place. But it's very intriguing. Every country should have a development plan. So yes, it's good that there's a development plan. But then only a few years ago, we went through similar exercises coming out with a 40-year development plan. And there were good brains that came together to put this 40-year development plan together. And I remember there was school of thought, those who thought 40 years was too long, those who thought it was okay. In any case, it came together. So you try to find out, how does this 7-year tie into that 40 years that we, let our good old wise men sit down to draw? And in any case, are there any specific objectives as to where we are now and where we need to get to, so that we all buy into it, so that everybody, whether the taxi driver, the doctor, the pilot, the architect, the banker, all knows that, look, this is where we are and this is what I need to do to buy into it? Because all too often it becomes party manifesto, and we sit back and just watch, well, how is this tying into so that you and I buy into it, with or without the president, so that we make this thing work? That's what we are talking about today. And I know it's only the beginning. The document was released today, 151 pages long, so just the surface today. And as the week goes by, I'm sure we'll delve into it proper. My name is Nana Ansakwao, Chief of the Little Republic of Akufo-Addo. We have a 3-year development plan, very short. When I come back, I have guests who will understand what's going on. Don't go. Well, thank you very much for staying. The coordinated program of economic and social development policies from 2017 to 2024. That's the plan on the table. With me in the studio, sat right next to me, is Courage Boti, economist, and also with the Data Bank. And then, Courage, you're welcome.
Thank you, Dada.
And then I have Dr. Mensa Abrampa, who's Senior Technical Advisor, Minister for Planning. So he knows a thing or two about what we're going to talk about. Doc, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
I think I'll start with you, Doc. Doc, how does this 7-year tie into our 40-year? Or we say, look, it's a new government, shove the 40 years and now let's focus on the 7-year.
Well, thank you very much. Let me say that the 40-year development plan is a process which was started by the previous government. And this is something which has been ongoing and until the end of the government. But doesn't mean that is the end of the process, because you need to form a commission. So there's a new commission and the National Development Planning Commission that had to continue with the process. And then it can finally be approved by the commission and then to bring it out to the country, and the process will be onward. This has not been completed. So we can say that it's a work in progress. And it's up to the new government to review and then go through that process. But let me say that the 7-year, for the 40-year program is very broad. It's a perspective plan, which indicates the picture that we would like to be in 40 years. And then in between that, there are medium-term visions and programs which are supposed to interpret whatever it is. Okay. So if it's completed and approved by Parliament and with the review of the current government, then it will become something that will represent the country. So it's an ongoing process. Whilst the medium-term program is a mandate by the Constitution for which every president has to respond to. So the program which has been presented by the president is something which he is enjoined by Article 36, Clause 5 to produce, not beyond 2 years of his term in office. So before it gets to the clock of the end of the two-year period, he should have produced that. The president has already indicated that he's in a hurry. And therefore, this president completed that in 10 months and presented it to Parliament on November 30th. So he assented to it on 25th October, and 17th November he presented to Parliament. This is the first in the Fourth Republic that this has been completed within the first year of being in office. It already indicates how the president is in a hurry. But let me say that broadly, it is not a deviation from any of our planning processes. The details and the emphasis is how it brings about the innovation and the new thinking and the vision. Again, this is also something different because throughout the process, we've had a president who has campaigned 3 times, interacted with the people in the communities on 3 consecutive times, and therefore his experiences and the problems he guided, discussed with the people on the field, is something that has really influenced this document. 12-year continuous round of campaigning. So it tells you that this brings a picture which represents all these views gathered over these years, and that is.
Corey, let me get preliminary comments from you, and then we'll take it from there.
Great. Listening to the president yesterday, and then all the like the technical advisor said, the programs that are packaged into this document we're seeing are not entirely new. These are things he spoke about on campaign platforms. These are things they've started doing already. These are things, I mean, some left processes initiated, others are in the stage of being initiated, others are being carried out already. So really, it's just, if you like, a formalization of his manifesto. I mean, as the Constitution enjoins him to do, that he is presenting now to the nation as an official document based on which they go into their blueprint to change the fortunes of this economy. I scanned through a few sessions of it, and you see there are programs for almost each sector of the economy aimed at changing it over the 7-year period. I must just be quick to add that it's just a program. It's just a set of policies. It doesn't translate into development yet. It cuts out the work for the ministers and then the technical people in the ministries and all the technocrats around that. If you are, say, in the Ministry of, say, Roads and Highways, if you are in the Ministry of Railways, this is what the vision the president wants to pursue within his period. Now, the onus lies on you to devise strategies that can help us get there. It serves as a document each one of us can hold them accountable to at the end of the period, because there are quantitative targets and then there are duties spelled out for even the Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation and all the other people along the line. Now, at the end of the period, the extent to which they achieve those goals stated in there is how we'll measure the success or otherwise of this government. So I think it's a constitutional mandate and nothing out of the ordinary. And so we can go into the details probably later.
Now, I don't know if I'm being overly critical, but you know, I found that there's more English than solutions in this book. You know, the grammar is good, the English is very good. And for every sector, they seem to reiterate the problem in the sector. You don't actually get to say that, well, so in that case, A, B, C, D is being put in place so that we achieve this in 6 months. Now, as soon as I got the book, the first thing I looked for was population. Because I seem to see that every sector of this country, every sector, have all these fine ideas, and nobody seems to be worried about how many human beings we are pumping into the system at one go, and that we won't be able to catch up. Hospital beds, classrooms, teachers, roads, farms. The population is growing too much, and there's not energy in that sense. So as soon as I picked this, the first thing I went was if there was population. And there was a chapter. And I felt it was just a brush. And so, you know, what then happens is that all the other sectors, i.e., which is a major thing with jobs, if you're doing 2,400 babies a day, I mean, how many jobs are you going to create in a day or a week to be able to mop up these things? So I think, you know, my whole worry for this beautiful thing is that if there's not 2, 3, 4 pages of slowing down the population growth, it's English.
You're right. I think currently the last figure I saw for annual population growth is around 2.8% per annum. Well, of course, it's debatable too much, but we live in a country and in a part of the, except China and in a few other developed countries where they've actually attained full employment and there are no much opportunities for growth, that they have consciously put limits on birth control and stuff like that, or try to implement. In our part of the world, we have freedom to procreate. Really, so the considerations should be. So I saw news items today about people on the street and how the gender minister has failed to mop them out of the street. But the question is, who's producing them? Should there be a deliberate national policy to curb population growth?
Well, if you don't do that,
I think we need to have a conversation rather, because it's a dicey issue. I mean, that is just one aspect of it. I agree with you that all of the problems of unemployment, all the problems of carnage in our cities, all the problem of overcrowding we're seeing around, some way, somehow, population need to be managed in a better way. But I think really a lot of the rural folks who are supposed to stay in their area, if they find active jobs to do in the area and then live there, that will not create the kind of problems. In fact, agriculture employs nearly 50% of our total population, but we still manage to import food. Why? Because the few that are involved, or the many that are involved, are not actually being efficient in production because of infrastructure issues, the capital issues, and a lot of other problems surrounding the sector, the lack of incentives, and then the profitability issues with the sector. So if you find a way of getting these people, making agriculture, which employs a mass of the uneducated or not too much educated people, to stay in their localities and farm, they would have jobs to do, and then this population thing we're talking about will not be a problem. It's because a number of people are chasing few non-existent white-collar jobs, and then they are all crowded in the cities and in the urban centers of our country. So for me, scanning through the program, I saw some things that were encouraging, particularly for the agricultural sector. Let me say one thing. 2017, we had Fall Army worm outbreak, and then that was supposed to destroy sizable farmlands. I mean, people, crops destroyed and all of that. But I was impressed to see that the crop subsector of the whole agriculture sector actually expanded by some 4 billion. Why did it happen? Because there is a certain planting for food and job program that led to some growth. I mean, this year they are looking to expand it to 5,000. If the incentives are well packaged and then the systems are better put in place, then we are able to fight some of these outbreaks more efficiently. It is creating the avenue for those rural folks to stay in their communities and then work. If you create the proper market linkages, the warehouses that are being proposed, the commodity exchange operational, there are markets to sell these goods so that you reduce post-harvest losses. You encourage a lot more people. So the solution for me at this stage, given our circumstances, that there is really no limit on birth and how many children you can give, creating economy around the rural centers is a way to go.
Let me bring Doc in here. Doc, I think it's about 50% of our labor force is uneducated. Yeah. 50%. So now if you have 50% of an uneducated labor force, how fast can you grow the economy to mop up all these things that my brother is talking about?
Yeah, let me start by saying that the population could be an asset. It could be a resource, depending on what you use it for. We have a particular case in Africa and also Ghana as part of it. It's what we call the demographic dividend, in the sense that we have this bulge at the middle, about 15 to 35 years, constituting about 35% of our population. This ought to be turned into an asset. You can do that with a strategic approach. And if you look at this document, that is what it mentioned. First, to look at education. Because if you have all these people without any level of education, without any level of skills, then it turns into be a problem. That is where they begin to move around looking for jobs everywhere for which they can create. And therefore, this government is looking at that critically. The free SHS policy is towards that. We see how we are now moving our children from a point where they can make critical analysis. They can look at skills. You look at emphasis on TVET, that's training on vocational and technical skills. And this is what the government is looking at. So that without even seeking job in these usual areas, they can do that. It's a response to the population issue. It's not just one trend. It's a track. It's also multiple. The whole issue of building an economy where people could develop their own businesses, creating an environment where capital could be assessed, and also at a rate for which any ordinary entrepreneur could make profit, will be an encouragement. The other thing is also looking at our whole spatial development. Population also goes with distribution in space, for which at the point that they are needed, are they there? If they are needed in the rural areas to go into agriculture, what do we do to make them stay there? And some of these social policies and programs for which the government is initiating is towards that: education, health. It's not just creating dirty cities and dirty rural areas, but also preventing that. So there's so much emphasis on sanitation. And therefore, even without that, when people are sick, they should have easy access to obtain health, the service. And these are things that they're looking at. The NHIS, for instance, there's a whole discussion which has been initiated to restructure the process so that it can respond to some of these things. Beyond that, you see, the problem with housing, people look at beautiful structures in the cities and they are attracted. Good roads and they are attracted. Good water and they are attracted. Good electricity, they are attracted. And then if they buy new phones, and then you can only have access when they climb to the highest point in the village, definitely they would like to enjoy. The young people would like to explore, and therefore they move. But if you're able to provide some of these facilities in some of our rural areas, then they will also like to explore, innovate, and develop some of these skills, which are already available. There are areas around, let's say, tourism. We talk about tourism. We want people to attract visitors to some of these rural areas to observe some of these ecological things that we have, some of these historical facts that we have in our various rural areas. Some of these youth could be employed in even going with the tourists, providing information for them, learning about their own history through that. But how can you learn about your history if you've not had access to education? So education is basic. Skill development comes up. Then you provide the social facilities so that you can influence the distribution. We should be able, if you look at one of the things we are looking at, is settlement and urban policy, so that we can distribute some of these population in space. If you're putting an industry here, you know you're going to attract people. Have you put facilities there to sustain them? If you put it there and you don't have the means to sustain them, they'll move around. So it's a whole comprehensive thing, and that is what this vision has expressed. So it's not just looking at one thing. We have what we call compatibility analysis. As we move on, we look at how they're compatibility among these policies. And that's one thing which runs through the whole place.
No, I think I agree with you. I mean, going through the document, everything is, everything is touched upon. My concern was that the main bane of why it is that we need to do all this thing had, like majoring in the minor. The reason why we are unable to supply water, the reason why we are unable to keep people there, because there's just too many people coming in, year out. With free education, which is a good thing, in the next 3 years, we'll have, 500,000 people coming into the job market. Are you saying in three years, this economy will expand to absorb 500, assuming half come into the job market? Do we even have enough universities to mop up the other half? So if you don't slow down the numbers coming, all these fine English and fine ideas will become a major thing. Look at health. How many doctors are we going to train now to get the ratios right? How many nurses are we going to train to get the ratios right? So I'm just saying that the major problem for developing countries is too many people, and it's not that too many well-to-do people, it's too many stragglers. That's why you talk about NHS, there's 70%, relying on like 28% who have to pay and feed, so there's just a small people carrying a load. The population, the speed at which it's growing.
I agree, and it's a problem, but of course, like I said, it's an asset as well. It depends on how we manage all of these things.
So I said if they are trained, but when 50% are uneducated,
out there, the distribution of their population seem to be skewed towards the aged.
Yeah.
And they are even struggling to get the younger people, as human resource to carry on there. And that's why migration rate is high, mostly to those countries, because they are given all the incentives. Now that we are able to procreate, you see, the whole thing about population creating the economy, you see, once your economy is resolute and then it's stable, you are able to attract private capital that can expand various sectors. Think of the industries that would develop around a railway, functioning railway system. Think of industry that will develop around agro-processing.
Well, that will be if we're able to achieve on the skills.
Of course.
Those
Because
at the moment we import welders, you know that?
Yes, of course. I agree.
Yeah,
but,
so with all the 30 million people,
you need that level of, you need that level of stability, right, to create the businesses that will lead to these masses getting jobs. And really, it will be a good contribution to your GDP if you can find jobs for all of them. Yeah. But it's enough incentive for you to invest
many
more
of them
in
are
creating jobs. The reason they are unemployed, like
no,
you
not
said,
unemployed, unemployable.
Unemployable.
Yes.
Well, granted,
Look,
the reason
I got a call, right, as a chief.
Yeah.
I got a call saying, Nana, you have guys in your village. I need 5 people under 40 who can read and write and can drive. I got one, 52.
Nana,
I got one.
Nana, you know
52.
why?
And I'm sure it's the same everywhere. So, you know, they are the people there, but in terms of specific skills, I'm sure you being in planning, you find the challenge. The numbers are there, but what can they do? Read, write, and drive. That's all I was supposed to produce.
I think it's easy to blame people, government, people in authority, and I agree they are blamable, if that word is correct, to a large extent. But you see, I think one problem with we the youth also is our inability to take advantage of stuff. Now, assuming I graduate from secondary school, I have no one to sponsor me to go forward anywhere. What am I doing personally to myself to add some skill? Or assuming I've graduated from university, for the last 3 years I'm home, I've not gotten a job. What am I doing to make myself employable? Truth is that most of university graduates just have theories in their head. Truth is that all through school, people do nothing to add any value to themselves. An employer is not looking for someone he would take today, spend money on training before you hit the ground running. He's looking for someone who is ready to go. And then truth is that most of us come out with no skills. And so we don't get employed. We are part of the problem. I agree that if we solve corruption, I agree that if we cut the wastages in most of the sectors of the economy, we could save enough to invest in education, to invest in skill training, to invest in the industries that are needed to employ these masses. But truth also is that if we are importing welders to Ghana, it's only because Ghanaians are not taking advantage. If there is a market and you are not taking advantage, you will get people from elsewhere. Ghana's fish import bill alone is so massive. We import maize to Ghana. What are people doing to take advantage of this? The data is there, but a lot of statistics graduates can't even analyze this data to find opportunities. For me, we have to blame also.
Let me bring Doc in here. Doc, another major thing is, what are we doing, as I was saying in my intro, that we all buy into this, because there's been so many beautiful plans in the past, but I'll give you one example. In this particular area, when there was, you know, the sanitation day, you know, there's like the last month or something. So if tomorrow was going to be the sanitation day, then it was NDC in government. So quickly the MPP people will come out today and sweep, so that the next day they won't be seen sweeping with them. I mean, that's how divided we are, to the point that even sanitation, cleaning our own gutters, well, if the thing is going to happen tomorrow, let's come in today, sweep, and then so you cannot blame them for not sweeping. I mean, so I mean, when we become so divisive, how do we come together to say, look, this is good enough, let's go with it?
Yeah, let me start by saying that in developing a vision, it goes through quite a number of sequence and processes. This might start with the president's own thinking and experience, but it also looks at the environment within which we live in, whether the problem that we are encountering. And it's gone through either a lot of iteration, talking to people, and all these things. So it's enjoyed a lot of feedback and a lot of also thinking from other sources, whatever it is, across the political divide, because it's looking at the people of Ghana. So if you look at the document, references have been made to the past and all those things. It's brought all of them together. The other thing, the more important thing is that out of this vision, we're going to develop what we call the medium-term plans, which is going to look at the 4-year period for the medium term to cover. So this vision, for instance, might cover 2 medium-term plans. And the medium-term plan is also mandatory. It's also a requirement, and there are acts in the country which are covered in the 480, and also there's an LI 2232 which also covers that. The key thing is that it's going to go through a lot of discussion at the district level. So it's not just a national launch and that is it. It's going to continue with the regional dissemination and also a district dialogue and then community meetings and all those things. The district preparation of the medium-term plan is done by the ministries and the districts. At the district level, we have what we call public forum. It's also a requirement, it's a mandate for everybody to participate in that. So through that, you air your views, we'll discuss it. After all this, it goes to the district assembly, which is a representation from the various communities. So all the assembly members are there. They will also discuss it and assent that. After they've assented, it has to go through the process all the way to the National Development Planning Commission with the Minister of Planning to agree and confirm. A certificate is issued that this plan really represents the views of the people. Is going through the whole process of district assemblies, agreement and everything before getting there. When it's done, then it goes to the budgetary process. That is when a financial plan is added to it and then it moves on. So this is the sequence. And it goes all the way to the district assembly, who are the immediate people that we elect. So it really brings in the whole process. If people participate, really brings in that element of involvement. What we have to do differently this time, and the Ministry of Planning has taken that up, is to really mobilize people, create that consciousness through civil society groups, through faith-based groups, through all these community groups, use the media and the press to always bring people to think about this document, discuss it at every level, and see that it's a shared vision. That was one thing the president emphasized in his speech so many times. Shared vision, shared vision. So he really, it's not just words, but he's really enjoined us to go there and make sure that it's a shared vision, something that we'll discuss and obtain people's view to shape it. And particularly when it comes to the implementation and the development of the implementation instruments.
We're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we're going to still talk about developing the nation. Don't go. Well, thank you very much for staying in this very, very all-important development plan. 7 years is very good. As a country, you definitely need to plan. Every good country worth its salt has gone through a period where they sit and project and say, by this year, that year, I need to get here, so that at least they start. But Doc, let me come with you. Yeah. Are there any like timelines to say, listen, in 2 years, we should see this. In 3 years, we should see that. Or it's just that big dream, let's see what happens?
No, as I said, this is the vision. Okay. But the vision is operationalized.
So then you have to now break it down.
Plan, which we have done. We are still preparing. I'm sure by the end of May, you'll see what we call a medium-term development framework. And the framework has these targets, objectives, and specific things that are going to respond to this over the next 4 years. So that will be the first phase of the implementation of this vision. Okay. And then it has also clear roles and responsibilities attached to that, ministry by ministry, district by district, agency by agency. Okay. So this is the operational tool for this document. Okay. And that framework then is taken up by the respective ministries and district assemblies. And they will also come up with their specific plans, which would indicate the projects and programs that are responding to the plans, and then through that to this vision. So if there's an issue with population, for instance, the figure here is that we're going to reduce it to the rate and a level of 2.2. How do we do that? So that is given an expression in the various and the respective sector plans, and so are the district assemblies. So if they are going to do a campaign or population activities and all those things, expressed in the plans of the district with defined targets. Okay. So if a district has a population growth rate let's say for now, it's about 2.9 in some of the districts, and then it will be targeted that it's going to go down to about 2.4. And the collective thing then will give you the 2.2. So the 2.2 is an expressed vision, an expressed desire based upon technical analysis and trend and what we're going to do. And these will take expression. So it is with the number of jobs and all the jobs thing that we're talking about. This gives an indication that, hey, given our level of unemployment, which so many, projections are being made or estimates have been made, ranging between 6.5 to 10.5%, depending on where you want to look at that. We're saying that this is going to slow down. We're going to reduce this gradually. But how do we do that? The definite expression will take place when there's a defined plan to do that. Okay, and this will take in the form of the sectors.
Let me hold you on jobs a little bit before you continue. You see, at the moment, if I sell coconut on Tuesday, and that's it, I go home and sleep, I'm employed because last Tuesday I sold coconut. Are we now going to, scrap that and say, listen? When we say job, it means you are in a secure, safe job and probably with a pension, or we are still going to keep it? Because it looks as if, quote unquote, politicians will just change the questions so that they will answer it themselves. And so when you say, oh, who's employed, they'll give you unemployment is only 3 million. Why? Because, there's somebody doing shoe shine, so he's employed. He's sleeping outside. Can't even afford NHIS, but, well, so far as you can polish a shoe, you're employed. Are we going to change it? So somebody who's employed is on a decent, respectable wage.
Exactly. So this is, if you look at the document, that's how it has defined what we mean by the employment. A decent job for which it can give you a decent wage. If you look at underemployment, the labor survey, which was done in 2015, had a huge amount of people who are underemployed. Okay. And it puts it in the range of about 30% in some of these areas. And fortunately, this study did it district by district. So we have the information there, a district by district information on underemployment. People who claim to be doing a job and frying just, 10 eggs a day and then sitting by the whole day and saying that that's my job. So we're looking for a decent job that can provide food on the table for you and your children and your family, okay, and some of these things. This is something where the Statistical Service is also looking at that, because we have a huge bulk of people in the informal sector, about 80+% in the informal sector, for which it's even difficult to trace, because they don't have registered jobs and they define their own jobs and whatever they do. So these are all things the Statistical Service is taking into consideration in doing the NAS survey, what they call the Ghana Living Standard Survey, so that they can guide people in getting real and correct figures of the state of our unemployment. Okay. And we are looking at that. We're working with them. There's a whole team that is doing that and led by Statistical Survey, so that we can be concrete. That gives us a departure from the past, where it has been guessed, estimates ranging between 6.5 and 10.9 for unemployment is too wide. Okay. And it shouldn't be that. So we're looking at all that. We have all the experts who are looking at that. We'll be meeting regularly to respond to that particular figure. But beyond that, there's no problem that we have problem with unemployment, particularly with the youth. They put that around 13.5 for the youth, and which is whether +3 -3 is huge.
It's huge, yeah.
It's something that is not good for the country, and we must look at that. And that is why the government is putting in place not only the formal type of employment, but even looking at the informal sector and how this can also help in creating jobs, not only in public sector jobs, but also particularly in the private sector, how they can support them and expand and give them the necessary incentives so that they can create avenues for the youth to also get employed. And not only that they're looking for their own jobs, but self-employment. And the good thing is that if you look at the labor statistics, there are more people who are paying themselves, creating jobs for themselves, than those who are earning from others. Yeah. Those who are earning from others is just only 29% of our population, those who are working. The rest are creating jobs for themselves. So that thing is there. When they say that people cannot create jobs and they are looking for jobs, no, the statistics tells us otherwise. So this is one area which we can help to expand. People can innovate, people can look for avenues and create their own jobs. And I know that the current youth, if challenged, will do that. They are daring, they want to do things, and I know it from my own children. They want to move spaces where I couldn't even see when I was at their age. And this is where we must encourage them so that they can move to the next level, create incentives for them. And this is what the vision, the kind of thing which has been expressed here in a quite a multifaceted form.
Obviously, you're more interested in the economy, economist. Are you happy with the projections in the economy and the vision?
Certainly, I think the bane of our economy has been the instability we've experienced from time to time, usually in election years. We spend our way out in a bid to keep ourselves in power, and in the end, we mess up everything. So I see, for instance, 2017, and then all the wrongs that seem to have happened in 2016 seem to be gradually corrected. Economy grew 8.5%, debt to GDP somewhere around 70% from 73, fiscal deficit is around 6%, inflation currently is 10.4%, and then CD stability is kind of emerging year to date.
On paper. Yeah. This economy never seems to end up in people's pockets.
I'm building a point.
Okay.
CD stability, year to date, we've had an appreciation of around 0.25% against the US dollar. And then I saw from this document that government is planning that within the next 7 years, they want to maintain an average growth rate of 7.2%. I mean, and it's even more refreshing to realize that that growth is going to be driven by the industrial sector from 2019 onwards, when oil production might have tailed off. Because yes, Sankofa Jinyame field is coming on stream or has come on stream. The gas component is supposed to come in May. But you see, once you are moving from a higher base into the next year, the negative base effect or the unfavorable base effect to draw your growth down. What is being done to sustain that, to sustain growth? You're looking at investing in manufacturing sector of the economy. You are looking at revamping agriculture, all of which policies are expressed. For me, I think it's a sustainable way of growing your economy so that you maintain an average agriculture growth of 6% each year. That is their plan. You maintain an average industry growth of 6%. And interestingly, they are looking at maintaining CD depreciation at 4.2% annually for the next 70 years. How will they attain that? Currently, CD stability is coming from the confidence the investors has in our core economy because of the stability that has emerged from the fiscal side and, of course, the reforms ongoing in the financial sector. So that stability is actually attracting a lot of people. The US is hiking interest rates. Development, the economies of the advanced world are picking up. When they sufficiently pick up, will investors still be looking at us? What do we do to sustainably attract efforts, trade? And you see focus is shifting to value addition, more aggressive export strategy. That is what gives me confidence that we have some hope going forward. If at all it's not just rhetorics written on paper and these things can be carried through, there is hope for the economy. They are looking at maintaining inflation at sustainably around 10% maximum. The medium-term target is 8% plus or minus 2%. So if we could even keep inflation within that range, what it does is that it reduces lending rate, because lending rate is essentially that inflation rate plus some risk premium that you'll be bearing. And so if you can maintain exchange rate stability, if you can curtail price pressures in terms of inflation, keeping it within range, and then all you are doing is that you are helping interest rates come down. That gives the private enterprise, opportunities to borrow at cheaper rates, expand the economy, create jobs that we're looking for. And it gives confidence to those direct investors that you are looking forward to attracting to build the industries, the core industries they have proposed in this budget or this program, to also have the incentive to come in. Because if you come invest billions of dollars in Ghana and then CD depreciation is a worry, by the time you'll be recouping your investment, you might have lost its real value because depreciation would have wiped it out. Or if even provisions are made, it means Ghana will be needing more years to pay for the investments if we have maintained the CD. So all these gives hope for the kind of economy that they are seeking to build with this program. The question or the worry I maintain here is that how do we translate these wonderful ideas into action? I mean, so that when election is approaching,
no,
we'll not mess it up
action
again.
into pockets. Don't say action. Don't
That,
say
for me,
action.
that is the real concern I have now.
How do we translate all these beautiful things into our pockets?
The last time I was on this show, I think I tried to hit there that some of these things will translate in our pocket over time. You see, if the industry spring up, if agriculture keeps growing like it's growing, the people in your republic who are probably predominantly farmers, excuse me if that is not the case,
yes, it is.
And stuff like that, have incentives to produce more. Not only are they producing more bags of maize, more bags of rice or stuff like that, they have places to sell them, right? And then that gives them the encouragement. If you have a warehouse system operating efficiently, you have a commodity exchange operating efficiently, they don't have to sell those things when they do their bumper harvest. They could keep them there, have a ticket that they can keep. Anytime they need money, they could go to a bank, exchange some of the ticket for money to go and expand their farms. That gives incentives for people so that my bags of maize won't go waste on the shelves, or my vegetables won't go waste. If those opportunities are created, I think we are making progress.
Let me bring Doc in. Doc, as far as English is concerned, our economy, you can't touch it. If it has to be in English, you can't touch our economy. But agroniform, agroniform. You're talking about inflation. The central bank is reducing lending rate, but the high street banks won't reduce it. Only for God knows what. And you see, you're talking about investment. There's so much investment, and they expatriate all their profits and their money. And so they'll say, oh yeah, per capita is $4,000 a year. It's not in our pocket. It's one person making $1 billion. They divide it amongst that, and then you look rich. But, you know, in actual fact, you are not. So, I mean, Doc, how is this development going to change the cycle, you know, from paper to pocket?
Yeah. I think one of the key things, if you look at this document and also throughout the speeches of the president and particularly the vice president, is to look at how all of us can be actors in the financial system. Okay. We have a financial system currently where there are a lot of the people who are outside because they are informal. They cannot even walk to a bank and take a loan. And therefore, the banks themselves have a small group of people that they've been dealing with. Okay. So mobilizing resources from many of these people from the informal sources are becoming quite difficult. And one of the things that we've started is what we call the inclusive finance, which has been elaborated to some extent in this document. And I'm sure when the plan rolls out, you will see that. One of the things you can do is that the banks are also anticipating a lot of risk, giving loans to somebody you cannot even trace.
And rightly so.
You cannot even trace. The person doesn't have even an address for you to, in case there's a problem, get to the person. So these are things that we're looking at. And so the national identification system, the national address system are all means to address this. Then the banks will know that, okay, the risk has reduced, and therefore we must reflect this between the policy rate and what we anticipate we're going to get. Okay. So the risk, if it's bigger, definitely it will be wider. And if it's wider, it will not get to the pocket. Okay. But gradually, what the government is doing is to reduce it. We can identify them. They have an address system. They've registered their business, okay? Because it's easier to register now. It takes a shorter number of days and all these things. So all these things that we are doing is to reduce the risk. It takes time between policy and results. There's no doubt about it.
So it will end up in our pockets?
Yes, eventually.
Thank you so much. That was Dr. Mensah Brown, Senior Technical Advisor, Minister for Planning. And then I had Courage Boti, Economist at Data Bank. And I always give you the number. It's 024-366-2001. 024-366-2001. Tanti's Fashion, they make my shirts. Give them a call and get yourself a shirt. Let me also say that Volta Presbytery is celebrating 25 years, and it's from the 18th to 21st of April at Akosombo. 18th to 21st of April at Akosombo. So all Presbyterians, be there in your numbers to support. We'll be back to do this all over again tomorrow. Don't forget to watch Muntaka. And guys, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.